we know if anyone's calling?
Okay, so if I can share, no, just try on a chair. Okay.
Okay, do we have anyone on the telephone lines?
If he runs, he's going to run against me.
Mm-hmm. Guess so.
Trustee Swan.
Thank you, Trustee Swan.
For me.
Okay, I'd like to call to order the regular meeting, December 14th, 2016. And I'll ask us to rise for the singing of O Canada.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all thy sons command, with glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free, from far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
I'm not sure who started that.
You started that.
Next time you do, usually you have to hit the play button.
Whoever did, thank you for putting us into a key that most of the guys can sing in. I was glad it wasn't Trustee Cartner because we had been up into that, that range that we're not ready for. I will ask the director to do a roll call, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, trustees. This is our roll call for our board meeting of 14 December 2016. Trustee Armour.
Present.
First Vice Chair Karkner.
Present.
Trustee Cram.
Present.
Trustee Garrow. Trustee Bill McPherson. Trustee Wendy McPherson.
I'm here.
Trustee McAllister.
Present.
Second Vice Chair McDonald.
Present.
Chair McMillan.
Present.
Trustee Richards.
Present.
Trustee Swan.
Present.
Student Trustee Grace Mars.
Present.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Director. I need a motion that the Upper Canada District School Board approve a consent agenda items 3.02, 3.03, December 14th, 2016 as submitted, moved by Trustee Kartner, seconded by Trustee Richards. I'll ask you to cast your votes, please.
Present.
That carries. Thank you. Thank you. Are there any conflict of interest declarations? Seeing there are none. Report from the private session. At its Committee of the Whole meeting in private session November 23rd, 2016, one financial matter was discussed and no recommendations were brought to board. So we're going to move forward with our delegations and presentations, and I'm going to ask Superintendent David Coombs if he will introduce the principal and vice principal from Athens District High School.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and good evening, trustees. It's my pleasure. I actually have two schools tonight. I'm quite excited about that. I think one of the first times I've had that happen. I'm going to invite the administrative team from Athens District High School, Principal Marshall McNair, Vice Principal David Peer, to come and tell you about their small but mighty school, Athens District High School. Welcome.
Thank you, Dave. So thank you for the opportunity tonight to share with you a little bit about life at Athens. We are a small school, but we offer endless opportunities for our students. We're very proud of the many accomplishments and most proud of the journey we're on right now to help students improve their learning. On our school profile slide, I wanted to point out a few highlights. The Power of Small at Athens provides us with the opportunity to do a lot of tracking of our students, both formally and informally. Our population is 205 with 152 secondary students and 53 intermediate students. Being a grade 7 to 12 school and with a small population, we are really mixed together for quite a bit of activities at our school. Our lunches overlap. It allows our students to integrate with each other. We are very proud of a couple of our specialist high skills majors that we offer at our school, an environmental specialist high skills major, and then our second one, which we are in our second year, community safety, emergency services, and justice specialist high skills major, and it's really addressing a lot of needs of our students. We have a lot of diverse learners in our school, and these two SHISMs provide a lot of pathways for those students to be able to access. We have a very active Facebook page. It's really the face of our school. We share lots of great activities, updates of what's coming up for our parent community, and of course we show lots of examples of the evidence of student learning of what's going on within our classes, and we're very proud to share that out with our community. Another a special program I feel that we offer at Athens is the online learning, and we're very fortunate Mr. Peer teaches one of our online courses, and it's really provided us with the opportunity to build some teacher capacity in online learning and further support the students that need that with a Mr. Peer right in the building teaching online learning. It's a busy building with sports and activities, but it's also a hub of the community. There's lots of long-standing connections of parent groups, community groups, student groups that access our facility on a regular basis. So we're very proud of the connections and the partnerships we've made in our community. And we look forward to continuing to welcome many international students into our school. Every year we're very small, but we end up with about 15 international students, and this year they've arrived from China, Spain, and Australia. So it's been really neat to bring their cultures immersed in our building.
At ADHS, we are increasing the depth and precision of our supports for students in EQAO testing. We still have room to grow. But over time, we have moved from one-size-fits-all supports to targeted support based on data that groups the students by strength and need. Our small size allows us to do this with accuracy, but it can also present a challenge for us in that the difference in performance of a couple of students can have a profound impact on our overall scores. Currently, we are looking closely at problem solving through spatial reasoning in our math group, and reading comprehension with a focus on inferencing in our literacy group, which we will discuss further in our SIPSA slides.
So one of our SIPSA teams is focused on literacy, and at Athens we would be in the ACT stage of Cycle 1 right now. We are part of the gap closing literacy strategy for our board, and we're really enjoying being part of this gap closing strategy because it provides us with some clear direction of where we would like to take our students in order to help them improve. We are using the new PM benchmark tool, and we're identifying students' needs, we're creating class profiles, and then that's giving us an opportunity to work close with our learning partner and target in on some specific reading challenges that some of our students are having, and then we're able to further address their needs by learning some different instructional strategies that we can bring right to the classroom and work with students. We are spending a lot of time back in Cycle 3 analyzing the data from our Ontario Secondary School Literacy Test, and we found it very interesting that there was a group of students that did not pass the test that we would have predicted to pass the test. So one of our goals or actions this phase is we want to bring that group together, take them through their tests because we have their answers, and we want to talk to them about why they may have not answered those questions correctly, because that'll give us a real opportunity to get their voice and us to be able to maybe plan further for the next intentional move that we would make, because we will hear right from this small group of students that they're surprised they didn't pass and we were surprised they didn't pass. So we want to gather more information on that to help us move move forward. As a whole school, we've been really focusing on learning goals and having learning goals very visible in our classroom and sharing those with our students, and then also co-constructing success criteria so students can truly understand what is needed to help them improve.
ADHS is an I-squared or intensive needs school for math. We are in the ACT stage of our current SIPSA, which is aimed at using math manipulatives in class at the site of the learning, and online resources available through the board's Desire to Learn platform to enhance problem solving in the realm of spatial reasoning. We're listening to what students are saying about how they understand math, especially in terms of problem solving through accountable math talk, and our teachers are regularly bringing student work to monthly meetings to analyze and determine best practices to improve instruction and enhance learning. ADHS is also part of the Math Assessment Strategy, which is a ministry initiative focused on improving and diversifying how mathematics is assessed in schools. We are using sets of marker students in each class to provide qualitative and quantitative data, and we are also looking forward to analyzing the results of our recent student attitudinal survey to help inform our next steps. Finally, the school's math team will also expand its use of the OneNote collaboration tool, allowing teachers to post work, receive student work, and to provide feedback.
And a third focus for us as a school is wellness. We started last June after students had completed the Tell Them From Me survey. We started with our staff analyzing the data right away in June, and we carried that on into this fall. And we began the year with our school council sharing the data so that we could gather feedback and information from them to further support our students' needs. We have created a wellness team at the school, and this wellness team is fitting nicely in with the new two-year pilot project with the Tell Them From Me survey. And we're looking forward to setting 2 goals with this wellness team. And we want to create some wellness moments that we can use with our students, with our staff, so we can teach and learn with and from each other what it means to be truly well. And we hope that will help. If we give a big focus on wellness in general, we feel that will expand into all the subject areas as well. Wellness at Athens is as much about student leadership. We have a very unique parliament system. That's how our student council is ran at Athens. We're celebrating our 70th birthday this year of parliament system in the school. And the students host a variety of spirit days, special events that really bring us together as a family. Another key thing we've recently embarked on at Athens is we're focusing on a ministry document called Supporting Minds, and we've been training using some PD time with our teachers at staff meetings to go through the document with a big focus on helping teachers guide their work for students in their class that are experiencing anxiety and depression, because we are seeing a lot of those needs in our building, so we want to address those, and we're starting with the teachers understanding the signs and symptoms of where that comes. So this document has become very powerful for us. And we have many supports that we're accessing to help improve wellness. We have a mental health counselor that's in our building half a day a week. We have a health unit nurse that visits us every Tuesday for 2 hours. We have a student support partner who works very closely with our staff. And then we reach out to various community agencies to bring them in as needed too. So we feel like we're on the trek to really dig into some wellness needs of our students. So in closing, we feel there's a rich history of education at Athens. We enjoy celebrating student success, being creative and innovative in our offerings and our instructional practices to further support our learners. Students are truly at the center of everything we do, and we're very proud to learn with them and from them each and every day. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to turn this over first to, I know a trustee is very proud of your school, Trustee McAllister.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I certainly am proud, and I was at the school for the session of Student Parliament, which was rather interesting. And as well, I was at a school council meeting where Marcia, you and Dave presented to the school council the Tell Them From Me survey results. Could you elaborate a little bit more, maybe without breaking confidence or anything like that, in terms of steps that you may have taken as a result of what you learned from the data?
Sure. Through you, Chair. The data really spoke to us. It targeted a group of senior girls that seem to be struggling with wellness, whether it be their own sense of belonging in the school or their connectedness. And so we are really diving into that group, and we've started a little mini fitness club that runs a couple days a week at lunch, and it's as much to provide them with some physical activity, but it's a new teacher that's joined us this year, and she's just built wonderful relationships with the students, and it's almost just an opportunity for these girls to connect with another role model in the school. So that's been a step that we had taken prior to even being a part of the pilot project from Tell Them From Me. So the fitness club for girls, because it's targeting these senior girls, I think is a step in the right direction. And then we're also accessing our student support partner to meet with those students and glean out some more information as we move forward.
Great. Can I ask a supplementary?
Certainly can.
That's very valuable. Thank you. I want to ask a secondary question with regard to, or a second question with regard to international students at ADHS. What role do they play in terms of numbers and staffing? And I'm sure it's a win-win situation. How does that work for you?
We have this year we have 12 international students that are full-time with us for the full year. Some of them are in grade 11, some are in 12. Majority of them come in 11, but we'd have a couple that are grade 12 students. And so they, once they get here, we treat them as part of the whole family there. So we try to integrate them into everything we do. We have 3 short-term stay students. So 2 have came from Australia, and they've both gone back now. 1 left last Friday, and so it's been really unique for us to have. We usually have our students from China join us, but to have a couple from Australia and 1 from Spain who's still there till the end of January. So we've created an ambassador program, which we didn't even speak about, kind of linked a little bit with our LINK program, where the ambassadors have taken on these students and helped mentor them and make them become a part of our school community, but the bigger community as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Trustee Cartman.
I just have a very quick, simple question.
Sure.
In that picture, what are they holding?
That's the mace that they hold. So we run with our parliament system. There are students the gentleman is the prime minister and the young lady is the leader of the opposition. So I just had them hold the mace for the picture, but there are other students that actually carry that to the front of the gym, and we start with the parliament system, very similar to what you would see if you watched a meeting in Ottawa. So.
Maybe they're a little more disciplined. I just thought it was a fancy-looking golf club.
Oh.
Or a honey stir.
You've seen me play before.
Yes, I have. I have no other comments.
Director.
Mr. Chair, through you, I just wanted to indicate that one of the things I didn't necessarily hear, but I know about the school, is that for a school of such a small size, they have an incredible commitment to diversity. So we did hear tonight about the commitment to hosting international students, and that's a very wonderful asset for all of our schools when they have that opportunity, and we have a very robust program, as you know, that way. But one of the things I did learn about the school very early on is their commitment to Indigenous education and Indigenous peoples, and they both hosted a staff development session and a focus at the school earlier in the fall. And I know that as well, that they have some staff members, one person that comes to mind particularly, who's very active in promoting and sharing knowledge about how to incorporate Indigenous perspectives in terms of how we learn about different ways of knowing and being, and in different disciplines as well. So, good things come in small packages, and we know that for sure in terms of when we talk about this school. And I just think that's, because it's a smaller size, it's particularly visible what's happening in that regard. And we should feel very proud of what's happening at the school.
Thank you, Director. Any other comments or questions?
Through you, Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Trustee Swan.
I just have a question for the principals. I'm just wondering, when you're taking a whole school approach to the Mass Talk, what are you doing there as a whole school approach?
Through you, Chair. So last year, when we had our literacy and numeracy teams, because we're so small, we had every teacher on one team or another. And so then the math team, they focused on accountable talk last year. So we had 6 or 7 people that were going back into their classrooms. We had done some PD in our sessions where staff were learning what accountable talk looked like and making sure that that was happening in the tech shop, in the science class, in various subjects across the curriculum. And then those teachers paired up with the teachers on the literacy team and taught them how to do accountable talk. And the literacy team was focusing on a different goal, and they paired up and showed the math team. So I want to believe that we've made that kind of a habit in our school, the accountable talk across all subject areas this year. And then our math team is much smaller this year. It's more focused with just our math teachers, but they are continuing to have number talks and math talks regularly embedded into their math lessons each day.
A secondary chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Has there been any conversation about this from the students that you've heard?
Yeah, it's through you, Chair. Yes, the students this year have really realized it's more happening. They can see it more intentional. We have grade 11 and 12 math classes running this semester, and the students will be commenting to the teacher, this is our math talk time. So we are definitely hearing that in our senior classes. I think it still needs to be more of a focus in our intermediate division, but the math talk is alive and well. And I know teachers, we bring it back to staff meetings where I ask them to bring back examples sometimes of what has been a recent math talk. So instead of the person in the shop class just helping the child measure something out, they're talking about it more. So we're really engaging the students in a lot of math talk.
I think that's great. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing there are none, Marcia and Dave, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Presentation, thank you. Mr. Coombs, I'm going to turn this over to you again to introduce Brockville Collegiate Institute.
Once again, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and good evening again. I'm very pleased to welcome the administrative team from Brockville Collegiate Institute. Of course, Brockville, very close to my heart. 8.5 years ago, I was the principal of Brockville Collegiate. And very pleased to welcome Principal Bill Loshaw, Vice Principals Christy Labrache and Dave McDonald.
Welcome.
So good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to share information about our school. As some of you may be aware, BCI opened in 1889 and has had a very positive and long-standing presence in Brockville and the surrounding community. Our students and staff feel very fortunate to be part of a school that has such a rich history and such a supportive school community. Currently, we have approximately 750 students at Brockville Collegiate, and within that enrollment count, we have 250 intermediate students and 500 secondary students. As well worth noting is that we also have 54 international students within that student population, and 91 students are cross-boundary students. In addition to our regular grade 7 to 12 programming, we also offer French immersion from grade 7 through 12. We have a specialist high skills major program in arts and culture, and an international baccalaureate program as well. Also worth noting is that our school is it's a full and busy school throughout the day. We are 100% on the ground capacity throughout the day, and it's busy in the evenings as well. We have a school that has 850 community use hours. Our school serves as a hub for activities ranging from sporting events, plays, concerts, and workshops. In telling the story of our learners, I think it's important to acknowledge that one of our greatest challenges up front is that generally speaking, we serve a broader range of students than what BCI has served traditionally. And with that, then we have an obligation to, of course, be reflective and to honor all pathways and to support students in preparing them for a successful life. So with regard to readers and writers, our OSSLT results have been above the board and provincial average over the past number of years. However, we recognize that we also have students who are not reading at grade level, and therefore we are working toward building capacity in our teachers to identify specific areas within reading that need to be addressed. As problem solvers, we are pleased with our academic math results. However, our EQAO applied math results have been similar to the board and province, and as such have been the focus for our CIPSA math inquiry as an increased needs school. And at this time I will ask Mr. McDonald to share some information about our work within the math CIPSA.
I'm going to ask Mrs. LeBrash to share information about her literacy.
That's what happens when we get two David McDonalds at the table, right?
Eventually it will come back to me.
I just wanted to note too that I'm excited to be able to talk about BCI as a former graduate of BCI. I'm very proud to be now a vice principal there. As Bill was mentioning, that traditionally for BCI, our academic students have been met with success in our OSSLT. In digging a little bit more deeply into our data, we see that our applied level learners have not necessarily had that kind of success. We also know that we receive wonderful transition information from our feeder schools. So those incoming grade 7 students, we've seen in the last couple of years that there's some students that are coming to us that are reading well below grade level, and in some cases we would identify them as non-readers. So this is quite a concern for us. We know that it's not only within their language courses and once they get into high school, but this has great impact into all of the subject areas. And as we dig further into the math, we know that language piece within our math too and problem solving. This is creating great challenges for our students that are struggling with reading. So we are in the current ACT stage, and our if-then statement is that if teachers use targeted comprehension strategies to address literacy gaps, then our students' reading levels will increase. We too, much like Athens, are using the Fountas and Pinnell PM benchmark kit that our board provided training in last year. This has been a great tool for us, our team, to dig into our own personal learning, but also so that we could really be strategic in how we are looking at reading behaviors within the students that we are targeting. Right now, we are targeting a small group of grade 9 students that will be going into a 1P class next semester. We're hoping that we can work with them, assess them now, and then be able to work with them throughout their course. How we identified these students was looking at some Flint-Cooter data that we had, as well as their report card data, and the PM benchmark kit has allowed us to dig more deeply into that and see some discrepancies there. We also know that our grade 7 to 10 teachers are wanting or asking for some better understanding in how to teach reading, because typically or traditionally we haven't had to perhaps look closely at teaching reading at this time, as our students have appeared to be fluent and comprehending well at grade level. But we now know that we need to help them with this and build their capacity in terms of when we have a struggling reader with us, what do we do with that? So that's sort of an urgent issue for us. Some of the early observations we've had within these grade 9 students is at this level perhaps an issue with vocabulary, where students are either aren't able to decode a word, or they aren't able to make meaning of that word because they're not understanding the context of the text. So we are working, we're using the kit and the strategies provided there to test some of our theories out. And we hope moving forward we will continue to monitor this group, but we also would like to add a small group of grade 7s and 8s and begin the same process with them.
Okay, as described before, we are an increased needs school in math, and we are currently in the planning stage of a new learning cycle. But before I address the new learning cycle, I'd like to step back a moment and talk about our previous learning cycle, in which we looked at some data and we looked to improve the confidence of our math students. So when we look through some EQAO data, the survey data, it pointed out that only 19% of our applied learners agree with the statement, "I like math." Again, on another survey question, only 19% again agreed with the statement that they are good at math. And 31% responded that they almost never take time to discuss math with their classmates. So what we did last learning cycle was we worked with our learning partner to introduce the strategy that you heard from Athens District High School called Math Talks to boost the confidence in the applied stream and in some grade 7 and 8 classrooms. The Math Talks started very generic with which ones don't belong, that sort of thing, whereby there isn't really a wrong answer. It just boosted their ability to take a risk in class and share and talk with their classmates about math. And then the Math Talks became more strategic for the teachers who were hoping to unravel some strategies that they were hoping to show their students in class. So after the daily Math Talks, some observations were made by our teachers that students are participating more in discussions concerning math. And some of the marker students who were previously disengaged are now participating and able to identify and use some of the strategies uncovered in their Math Talks. So we are continuing to have daily Math Talks in our math learning team classrooms, and we intend to re-survey the students in early January to see if the confidence or attitude has changed as a result of our efforts. Our current SIPSA cycle has us continuing to focus on learning goals and success criteria within our own within our classrooms. More specifically, we're trying to help students use the success criteria to guide their own work, kind of as assessment as learning. So we're meeting on Tuesday, and we'll be going into our grade 8 class, one of our grade 8 classes, to observe the class in action working on a problem concerning surface area and volume that the teacher has been working on. So the learning goal has been shared with the class already. Success criteria has been co-constructed with the teacher in the class. And we as a learning team are going to be going in and observing the students and how the students are utilizing the success criteria to help guide themselves through the question concerning area and volume. Following that, we are going to meet and share observations. We have some marker students in that particular classroom, and we're going to take a closer look at their work, and we're going to work together with the classroom teacher to try to figure out her next steps in the lesson progress. Also in our math team, we've been focusing in each portion of our math team meetings on how to best utilize the large quantity of manipulatives that were brought to us. And I'm glad we got them out to the classroom so that I can now walk around my office a little more easily. So our next, and that was part of our strategy, that every math team meeting we're going to take a new manipulative and somebody will bring an activity that can be shared amongst our group as to how to best use one of the manipulatives. And this week we're going to take a closer look at Cuisinart rods and the topic of equivalence in terms of fractions. So we also built in on 2 snow days ago. Before it was a snow day, we had occasional teachers lined up to come in for a half day. And our grade 7 teachers were going to meet with our math team, and our grade 8 teachers were going to meet with our math team, and we were going to work through the manipulatives, 5 or 6 different activities to show not only our math team people how to use them, but also expand our learning outward. And thank goodness, well, I shouldn't say thank goodness for the snow day, but it saved our school occasional teacher costs, because we were still able to get our teachers together at that time without having to worry about occasional teachers. So, and as a result of that, walking through the halls, we have noticed more manipulatives used in our grade 7 and 8 classrooms. So that's a small slice of what's happening at BCI in terms of the math world. Thank you for your time.
So in addition to the work that is underway with regard to our SIPSA, we are also very proud of the way in which our students and staff contribute to our school culture. We're very fortunate that we have strong student leadership at BCI, and that is evident in many ways. It's certainly evident through our mentoring program, through our web program and Link Crew program, where our students help to mentor younger students, and I think that's fantastic. Our student council also plays a key role at BCI in terms of planning regular spirit days and monthly student-led assemblies. And our staff members are committed to providing students with a wide range of extracurricular activities through sports and clubs and musical productions. And this year we'll be hosting many people within the community for the production of Aladdin. It's an annual intermediate spring musical production where we have no less than 60 to 70 of our intermediate students involved in one capacity or another. We also host an annual BCI Hall of Excellence and Academic Awards celebration, and really this is just a great opportunity to recognize former BCI students and also to give our current students a well-deserved pat on the back for what they've accomplished throughout the previous year. And just a great celebration. So in closing, I can say that we are striving to build upon a rich tradition of excellence in academics, arts, and athletics, and that we are also incredibly committed to preparing students for the future by honoring all pathways.
Thank you very much. Just before I open it up to questions and comments, being your trustee, I usually say this, I did not go to that school, but my daughter did. So, I mean, there is a connection there. It's a school that I'm extremely proud of. It's interesting to listen to the discussion when you know, as you said in the very end, Bill, that we open our doors to all students, and it sounds to me like you are facing those challenges head on. Mm-hmm. You're recognizing the needs in all students, which is incredibly important, and it's a challenge, especially when the school has not been used to that kind of experience. But you're not shying away from it. You're heading straight into looking at the needs, and I respect you for that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to open up to comments and questions. Seeing there are none, you must have done a great job. I appreciate you coming tonight.
It's possible we went over our 10-minute limit as well.
14.
Well, so did Athens. No. Thank you very much for coming tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to the next item. We put this discussion off from the last meeting because we wanted to give Superintendent Hobbs all of our attention, and we didn't feel we had enough. Well, yeah, maybe that's not why. But anyways, we do want to give you our full, complete attention on this, and this is a report dealing with the branding in Upper Canada. This has been around for a while.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just, at this stage of my career, I'm not looking for any more attention than I already have, so, but thank you. It's my pleasure to sort of bring a follow-up to you on a discussion that started about 18 months ago with some initial conversations around the board table around branding the board. And the board's been through a lot of change in the past few years, and so we've been looking for an opportunity to keep this on a simmer, if you will, but not necessarily coming to full boil until I think some other things come into to clearer focus. Certainly the board has a lot of things on its mind at this moment, and we're looking to, with branding, is continue our learning. There's a lot of learning to do on the other side of staff, and there's some opportunities I think for us to advance the cause as well while we're sort of sorting through some of the bigger issues on the table for the board. So, of course, the first part of our brand, I think, is really our mission and vision. And front of mind for us at all times in thinking about our brand is that we prepare students for a successful life. And within that context, there's a couple other things we're thinking about. First of all, the Ministry of Education a few years ago put out their Achieving Excellence document that talks about 4 major pillars or goals that they want for public education in the province of Ontario. There's also, I think, our legacy of the CREW strategic plan, and both where we've come with CREW in the past and where we may be going with CREW in the future that has an impact on our brand. And when we think about brand in that context, I'll just take you back perhaps to a quotation from Seth Godin that I shared with you, I think last year at this time when we spoke about brand for the first time at the board table. A brand is the set of expectations, memories, stories, and relationships that taken together account for a consumer's decision to choose one product or service over another. And the reason why I chose that quote at the time, and I continue to highlight it now, is because, again, a reminder that sort of in the 21st century, a brand is more than a logo, it's more than colors or a typeface or a slogan. It really is more about the experience of the customer, or in our case, the parent. And if you think about some of your favorite brands, it could be an Apple, it could be a Toyota, it could be any of your favorite brands. Really, I think that when people talk about what that brand means, it's more about the adjectives they might use to describe that product or service and their experience with the product or service than it is a logo, for example. So for us, it's the challenge has been a little bit about, again, keeping things on a simmer. I think being mindful of the context in which we're operating, the appetite that the board and the community might have for branding initiatives. And we've been trying to focus on what can we do that is going to actually have a positive, tangible impact on the people around us, and what can we do that is going to speak to some of the objective realities that the organization faces. So how can we actually improve our brand, improve the customer experience, but also address things like efficiency, right? And doing things more effectively with perhaps less labor. So where are we proposing to start? Well, first of all, we're proposing to initially focus on improving our parent and community experience, and therefore our brand, by further developing and refining our key digital touch points with parents, along with the underlying processes. So by digital touch points, I mean oftentimes parents will interact with us to an increasing extent through electronic means. So it could be our website, it could be email, it could be my family room, which I'll talk about later. And to me, this is both something that's characteristic of the way most brands are going, and it's something that's a pragmatic reality for our board. We have some properties that need refreshing. The last time I spoke to you, I indicated that one of our courses of action that we would take would be to go away and just do a rough inventory of those properties that we have. So the kinds of Twitter accounts, websites, things that parents encounter in the digital realm that have something to that are owned or directly or indirectly by the Upper Canada District School Board. We found well over 400 of those properties with varying degrees of management. So it could be that we have a school website or a board website. We could have a board Twitter account. There's Instagram accounts for schools out there. There's Snapchat accounts for schools out there. And certainly many of us as individuals have our own Twitter accounts, which as an example, could be seen to be, to one extent or another, representing the views of the board. So there's a lot of diversity out there, and there's opportunity, I think, for us as a first step in improving our customer experience and brand to actually improve upon those. So what are our intentions more specifically? Well, first of all, I think we can help parents navigate our organization more easily by using technology to reduce effort and improve consistency. So today, senior team, we had a good discussion about the parent experience with registering their kids for school. And so how can we actually make that process more navigable so the answers are more consistent the parents get, the processes are more clear, and the processes are more accessible to them. So what does that mean? It means that parents have the information that they need to know what they need to do and when to support their child. Second, when the parents need to conduct some sort of transaction with us, they need to pay for something, they want to book something, they want to find out that buses are canceled. My daughter's really keenly interested in that these days, it seems. So that's fast and easy. They know where to go and the information comes to them. I think we also want to apply the best available technology to learn more about our parent community. And this is one thing I've been harping on lately, I think, is that when you talk about information technology, what gets lost oftentimes is the importance of the information part of it. And the best companies out there, whether it's a Google or a Facebook or an Apple, they're doing all kinds of things with you're doing all kinds of transactions with them, you're posting on Facebook, but they're harvesting that information about those interactions and about you so that they can sell things to you. Now, we don't want to sell things to our parents, but we can use that information about the interactions that parents have with us to better serve them. One of the key expectations that parents and customers of all kinds, for example, have nowadays is that when they make the fifth call to an organization, they don't want to have to explain their story for the fifth time. So how can we actually aggregate and accumulate the combined knowledge that we've had with all our touch points with the parent and make it available to people so that they can serve parents better? just an example. And then finally, front of mind for all of us is how do we liberate staff time and effort from routine transactions so that they can apply their skills and empathy to high-value human interactions. So are we best off spending office staff time rekeying in a paper registration form, or are we best off applying that time, their empathy, and their skills of human interaction to dealing with the soft things that really contribute to connecting with parents and drawing them into our school community? Oh boy, it's too small for me to read. So, so why digital? And you know, it's easy to say 21st century, but there's some real research on this. Back when internet banking came out, I think people cynically viewed that, or perhaps many of you remember when ATM machines first started showing up. People sort of cynically viewed that as a way for banks to get rid of tellers and do transactions on the cheap, and gradually. People started to see that as premium service. People started to see the availability of internet banking or phone banking back when it started as more convenient because it's open all the time, right? And so what we've seen the trend now with many industries is that customers expect their first interaction with an organization to happen when they want and how they want, and oftentimes in the digital domain. More specifically for education, there was a study done by Blackboard in the United States, and they said 87% of parents in that study indicated that a personal email is the most effective vehicle for the initial communication home about something that's going on with their son or daughter. So they don't want a phone call. They want to be able to interact via email. So this is just a reality that we're facing, and we feel, again, it's a good opportunity for us to play a bit of catch-up after with some of the best learning that's happened in other industries. And I think the next point is it's not just about being digital or having a nice website, where to an increasing extent it's important to be mobile. So this is just a fancy graph to say that a couple of years ago, for the first time, internet usage on mobile phones surpassed internet usage on computers. So people don't want to, as an example, in the morning when they're going out the door and need to send a note to school, for example, they don't want to have to go down and boot up the computer and launch a browser and log in and send an email. They're going to have to do it from the parking lot of the school. Or that just could be me, but that's my experience. So finally, what else do we know about digital customer experience or digital parent experience? The actual experience, the interaction, the user interface, is only one part of it. And what we've learned now, I think, is that companies that are really good about influencing their brand with digital experience have another part of it, and it's called digital operational excellence. And for all of you around the table that have been with us through the Crew era, you know about the terminology of operational excellence. But it basically says that it's no good to gild the lily. It's no good to actually just put a thin veneer over something that actually has really inefficient processes underlying it. So as an organization, it's not enough to just put a face on our digital face or put a shiny website up. We have to have some meat to go with the sizzle, if you will. And so for us, it's about not just improving how we appear, but also the actual processes that drive the experience. So the next question probably for all of you is, well, wait, what about analog? So I think the thing that's really important for us is we're not suggesting for 1 second that we're going to go all digital on every interaction that we have with parents, and all the parents who prefer not to interact that way are going to be left out in the cold. Quite the opposite. I think what we've learned about brand and about customer experience in the 21st century is that you have to be present on multiple channels, because it's about serving people the way they want to be served. Yes, I think that if we're not in that position now, we will be in the position where most parents expect to have most of their initial contacts with the board through some electronically mediated means, at least initially. But that doesn't mean that everybody will. So that also means that we need to also be able to maintain those more analog, traditional means of connecting with people. I think the second thing that we've really seen is that investing in some automation and some digital technology liberates the actual staff time to invest more heavily in those kind of higher order interactions with parents that really matter. So when parents really need care, when the kids really need empathy, that human energy and effort is there precisely because our staff aren't having to deal with kind of the routine low value transactions that they're processing. So what does a digital strategy look like for us? Hopefully we'll find out. Well, a few things. So first of all, I think that one of the things that we're trying to work on is that visual consistency matters. So it's really important for us to actually, across our digital properties particularly, because it's relatively cheap and quick to actually change the appearance of those things, it's important that we don't have a series of disconnected properties that don't bear any resemblance to each other. So somehow we are grappling with, as we think about work with the communications department on new website strategy, is how do we allow schools to maintain their individual identities through their website, but also making it visually clear to people that those schools are part of something larger called the Upper Canada District School Board, with all the weight and resources and expertise that comes with being part of a larger organization. So that's important. I think the second thing is that process consistency creates loyalty. So pretty much every morning I go to Starbucks, and if I happen to be in a different city, I go to Starbucks. And if I happen to be, like in another town completely or in another country, I still go to Starbucks. And what creates the loyalty is that I know when I go into that Starbucks, I'm going to be greeted in a similar way. The products are going to be similar. I'm going to have a hot cup of coffee. I know that it'll be roughly about the same time to get it, and it'll be about the same price. Right? And I think that as soon as people have interactions with multiple touch points in a large organization, and when those touch points are inconsistent, the experience is inconsistent, it erodes confidence. And so that process consistency is going to be necessary for us to create confidence. And it's funny that confidence is created by the simplest of things, oftentimes. Number 3, I think one of the other things that's front of mind for us is the customer or the parent voice. So how are we actually using opinion gathering tools to improve the parent experience over time? And we have some ideas about that. And finally, digital initiatives should complement existing parent journeys. And one of the things that this means is, and I had a chat with my staff in IT about this today, is that when you're introducing a new service to people that purports to be about efficiency and improved experience, don't ask them to do more work. So when we launch a new service for parents that helps them do something more easily, the last thing you want to do is have a pop-up that appears the first time they go in that asks them to do a survey. Right? So the challenge here is for us is to take existing things that parents are already doing and make it palpably better for them, make it easier to access. So those are some of the things we know. So the reason why we bring this up, and again, sometimes you actually use an initiative like this to launch new initiatives, and other times you use it, I think, to actually inform and consolidate something that's already happening. And so for me, obviously, one of the big focuses of my last few years here has been around building out the idea of my family room. And I won't belabor you've seen presentations on it, but what is it? First of all, we've decided we wanted to build a secure platform for providing a means to conduct transactions with parents by providing a single point of entry and a consistent interface for all types of transactions. So far when we've talked about digital with parents, really it's been about a one-way broadcast. It's been about a website that has some news on it, and parents go to the website, they read the news, presumably they're enlightened. My family room is something different, and what we're trying to do is bring parent identity into it, so parents log in, and with that secure login comes some other things we can do. We can personalize information to them. We can provide them information that's subject to privacy legislation so that they're getting personalized information about their kids. We can kick off transactions with them, so we've just kicked off a project to do electronic payments through my family room and through a mobile app. But we can actually get more richer and ongoing interactions, and that's kind of an experimental approach to it. I think that one of the things that we've really tried to do, a lot of my family room that you don't hear about, we don't talk about, is that we've spent an awful lot of time figuring out how we actually identify parents authoritatively so that we can then learn more about them through our interactions with them. So we've put in place what they call a customer relationship management system that would allow us to do interesting things. For example, like when you link it with our link system, for example, a call could come into an office and it could pull data about the parent that's calling in from the CRM system so that the office staff would have a sense of what their last interactions have been. Just an example. And it's an opportunity for us finally to actually experiment with some new tools to seek input into development directions. So I'll talk to you a little bit about a tool we're using called User Voice to build a suggestion box. So when we put together, and this I'm not going to drain this slide, but when we put together all these things we've learned about brand being driven by customer experience, we know that it's about experience, it's about digital operational excellence. There's all kinds of characteristics of customer experience that we're trying to hit. So what I did is I just did a little quick matrix here where across the top there's all these things we've learned about customer experience, the things we need to do to have a good customer experience. Down the side are some features of my family room, and we've shaded a green box every time we've kind of hit one of those customer experience markers. So when we're building out things in my family room, really what we're trying to do is we're trying to color in as many green boxes as we can. Right, so we know what a good customer experience is. We know the influence that customer experience has on brand, and we're really trying to make sure that we're addressing all those areas through my family room. This is a good example of a new tool we're using, and I mentioned it earlier. It's our suggestion box through my family room. It's based on a tool called User Voice, and in IT. In the past, many of the tools we've used for actually collecting information about how parents feel about what we're doing is a survey. So, we send out a survey once a year, parents respond, we take that feedback and do something with it. Sometimes we do focus groups where we'll bring people in and we'll ask them some questions. And what you find is the problem with those tools is they tend to be point in time. So it's, if when the survey comes out, I have a parent who has front of mind something that they want to tell us about how we're doing, then I get some good feedback. But oftentimes people's desire to provide feedback, it doesn't coincide with the timing when I put out the survey. So User Voice is a tool that is available continuously to parents. They can log in securely. They can post ideas about what features they would like to see in my family room next. And actually what they can do is they can discuss other people's ideas and vote on them. So the idea here is that over time what happens is the ideas that resonate with our community the most float to the surface. And then we take all that information, once a quarter, and we sit down and start saying, well, what features are we going to start baking into our tool? Recently, we've deployed this tool out to school office staff just to mess around with what ideas do school office staff have for improving their work, and they can go in, same deal, put an idea up, vote for it, and then those things sort of float to the surface. So you're not dealing with the loudest voice wins. You're dealing with what does the community really see as the priority. And we see this as something that has utility in other areas of the organization too, in IT and I think beyond. So just a new tool that we're using as part of that customer experience strategy for harvesting information about what people consider to be important. So our next steps. So with regard to my family room, again, going back to this digital strategy, we're really trying to continue to show schools and teachers how to use the things that we put in there, like student calendars, the mass messaging service, Mir 3, which is driving our bus notifications. We email distribution lists for teachers to communicate home. We're currently now sitting at just under 13,000 parents signed up for my family room. We've had really good growth, I think about almost like a 70% increase in growth over the past year. And as I mentioned, we're just kicking off in the next couple of weeks a program to bring payments to my family room. So the idea here is that we'll be able to send home a hot lunch form. Parents will be able to get it on their mobile app, fill it in, pay for it, and all through the mobile app, which we expect to be seeing by the end of the school year. We're into the replacement of school and board websites, so to bring accessibility and to bring a tighter branding focus and a new content focus to the table. And then in the future, one of the other things that we're starting to work on is, again, as I said, that feature roadmap for MFR based on User Voice Suggestion Box. And we're also looking at investigating a contact center type tool for parents, so that when parent inquiries are coming in, we can register them and sort of ensure that there's a more consistent response to those things, consistent messaging and those kinds of things. So that's more of an exploratory phase. And that is it.
Well, thank you. A lot of information. So I'm going to open it up to comments and questions. Trustee Wendy McPherson.
Thank you for that, and through you, Chair. When you say you want to replace the school board's website, how much change are we talking with what we have there now? 25%? 50%? 10%?
In terms of content or look?
Both.
So I would say 100% look, and most of the content will probably come across. It will probably be organized differently. Our intent is to make it more navigable for parents.
Like, so the search engines will be.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, those are big, big things. And when you talk about the when you talk about the family room, when I go to the parent council meetings and I talk about the family room, nobody really seems to know, at least in my school, what that is or how we need to use that. So if you wanted to do a bigger thing, is there any way that we could sort of teach parents how to get onto it? Or I mean, I know you're saying 70%, and that's great. I mean, I'm on it and I never use it. It was quite the ordeal to get even registered on it for myself. And I don't use it at all because it's just totally foreign to me. What kind of education or training are we going to be doing?
Well, I think that the important thing to keep in mind about My Family Room is that when we initially kicked it off, it was a little bit daunting because historically the IT department had provided services for UCDSB staff, right? So 5,000 people during the hours of 8 to 4. And when we started out with My Family Room, we were contemplating providing an IT service to potentially 25,000 people who would be using it mostly outside of normal business hours. So we were necessarily cautious about not trying to do too much at once and to show small steps. So the initial thrust of My Family Room was really about this emergency mass notification system. So the idea is you go in, parents can go change their cell phone numbers and their email addresses so that when there's a bus cancellation, or in the case of, my daughter goes to TIS, if there's a lockdown, I get a text message saying, if you saw fire trucks at the school, everything's okay, we're back to normal. And so really there's no reason to go in there, to be honest, right? And what we're trying to do now is we're trying to, again, use this idea use it as a platform so there becomes more and more reason to interact with it over time. So since we've done that initial release of the emergency notification system, for example, when kids are going to be, a parent knows their son or daughter is sick, for example, they can go on the mobile app and send a note to school saying my son or daughter is going to be sick. And so we're receiving about 1,000 of those absence notes per week now through mobile apps, and that represents probably about 15% of our total absences each year. So what we're trying to do is phase in reasons for people to engage with it more frequently, and we're starting to see the participation rate increase. But again, we're really trying to, if I were to ask everyone around the table, how many people have gone to a training session for their online banking, right?
No, you're right. Yeah.
So we're really trying to design without the need for training in mind, and then gradually what happens is as people see relevance for them in it, make it easy for them to engage. And we expect that when we do payments, you'll see another burst of engagement with it.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see how that'll pan out.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
For you, Chair?
Well, we'll go Trustee Armour, and then Trustee McDonald, then Trustee Swan. So,
Thank you.
Trustee Armour?
Just have 2 questions to
Certainly.
your Chair. Just an interesting point around that I do agree with you that branding is a series of touch points around our digital experience. So are you suggesting that we only brand through digital, Superintendent Hobbs? Or is this just our main way of kind of branding for Upper Canada?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not suggesting at all that would be our only way of branding. And in fact, in the facilities department, for example, we're starting to look at things like signage and developing standards around signage for our schools. But, again, I'm trying to be, I think, mindful of the fact that there's a lot, we're in the throes of a lot of change as an organization. We're trying to do things that aren't perceived to be necessarily solely appearance-based, that have a tangible benefit to our parents or some of our parents. And frankly, with digital, when you're looking at a time of constraint and perhaps a little bit of uncertainty, you can make a big impact with a small lever, if you will. So you can make changes very widely and broadly that are encountered by many people relatively inexpensively compared to doing a big signage initiative, for example, at a school, right? So I think that if you think about branding as a bit of a journey where we're actually learning a little bit about what it means, what are the levers that we can use. We're starting with digital, but by no means would I suggest that would be the only domain that we would play in.
Second question?
Just a second question. It's in regards to My Family Room. So it's kind of a two-part question, if I can.
Yeah.
My family room, 70% is being utilized by parents. Is that the correct number that I heard? No. Went up 70%.
Yep.
So what do we find in my family room that our high school kids and families are using it more than our elementary? Do you have that data, or no?
Well, I think through you, Mr. Chair, I think that the question is, what do we mean by using it? So I could definitely get the data. So, as a parent myself, when we signed up for my family room, when I signed up, I went in, I put my cell phone number in. I said I would like to get emergency notifications by text, and I would like to get bus cancellations. Then I never went in again because I had no reason to. I would say that with respect to the calendar, so teachers can add things to their students' calendars and parents can see that in my family room and with the app. I would say that anecdotally that's being more used at elementary level. And with regard to absences, I couldn't tell you what the split is about the absence notifications that are going in, but we could get that.
Just curious.
Yeah.
Trustee McDonald.
That's all right.
Hey.
Combine them. Trustee McDonald.
Thank you. Superintendent Hobbs alluded to it. A point that I wanted to raise is that when we first discussed this more than 5 years ago, I think perhaps, this was as a result of wanting to make sure that we had a messaging system to parents. And there are several out there, School Messenger, Parent Link, all kinds of different things, but those systems fail to have the two-way communication piece. And I don't want branding to be about my family room, or I don't want my family room to be about branding. It is a piece, it is a tool that we have at this board. What evolved, though, from wanting to have a messaging system is to have an interactive system, to have that experience in place for our parents. And as we evolve, and there's been references to banking and all kinds of different things, the banking industry is certainly pushing towards a digital industry. And there's a lot of focus on digital because it's the way that most people moving forward want to interact. Not everyone will use every component of everything that we have, and not everyone uses every component of digital banking or online banking or mobile banking, but it's there. It's the convenience of it. And if we do it wrong, we will certainly know about it. But if we do it right, we've enhanced the experience. And I want to really bring up the experience piece because, years ago, we've done Net Promoter Score surveys. We've done Ipsos Reid surveys. Every one of these pieces that we now are looking to do to enhance the experience that parents have with Upper Canada helps us become better positioned to be in our communities and responding to those things. And the people that we want to make sure that we have connections with are the parents that we have in our system, those parents that have kids in our system. A sign speaks to the community in general, so we need to do those types of things. But we need to make sure that the parents have the experience of dealing with Upper Canada that's the best in their mind. Because whenever they go to the arena, or go to the church, or go to the park, and they're talking about their experience for their son's or daughter's school, we want that to be a positive experience. We want that to be positive comments, because that will resonate with their neighbors, their friends, their family. To make sure that when they're thinking about choosing a school or a board, they're going to choose that school that's down the road. They're going to choose Upper Canada. And I think that's an important piece for us. So branding and experience is an important piece. And we talk about budget and trying to control our expenses, but how do we control our revenue? And that's by making sure that we get parents to buy into what we're doing and to making sure that that whole experience that we have is the important piece. So, as we move forward, I think it's important that we buy into this, sign on to this, move forward. I think it's necessary that we do those things that Superintendent Hobbs has said about the signage, about what our colors look like, what our things look like as far as how we do things in our buildings. But I think it's important that we support and certainly put the efforts in place to make sure that the experience that we have through this branding process is in place, and certainly making the efforts to engage our parents and engage our communities around that experience they have with our board. So I thank you for the presentation. I thank you for the work that's been done, from having a messaging system out for mass communication to having a more interactive system. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Trustee Swan.
I want to thank you for your presentation, and I really like the messaging that the board has so far about our family welcomes yours, which brings me to my family room and the suggestion box. Where are we going with this? Will this come to the Board of Trustees on common suggestions, the type of suggestions you're getting, how many you've got? Can you please expand on that?
Director?
Mr. Chair, I'll begin. I think the suggestion box is really about how we use that service and the My Family Room platform to reach and connect with parents. I don't believe it's evolved to how we do business in general or how we can get better as an organization. It doesn't prevent us as an organization to explore through, like for instance, our parent involvement committee or through our school councils about whether or not that would be viewed as a valuable portal for us to track that as staff. And if the board felt that that was a window on the pulse of the community, that's certainly I think something that we can discuss to determine whether or not the platform can perform that role. I know that the board is already invested in that process through the Ipso-Reid climate survey, and it could be a logical extension to that at some point if that's where the board wanted to go. But for the purposes of the presentation this evening, it really was about getting end user feedback about how the platform was working for them as a way of exchanging information in a timely way about the family, and from the board's perspective, any kind of instant messaging or critical messages that we needed to get out to families very quickly.
Okay.
And may I have a secondary?
Yes, you can.
It's not related to that, but is there a way to text message people on landlines that don't have access to internet or cell phones about school closures, lockdowns through this portal if they somehow can register for it on a friend or neighbor's computer?
Superintendent Hobbs?
The short answer is yes. The options are people can receive text messages to a cell phone, they can receive email messages, and they can even receive voice messages. So it will leave you a voicemail, and they can we haven't rolled this feature out yet, but we have a number of languages to choose from if they wanted to receive a voice message in an alternate language.
Okay. Okay, Trustee Swan? Trustee Cram?
Thank you, Chair. Two different areas. I was pleased to see that you said there were other areas that we would be concentrating on as well, for example, signage and those things. But we can't lose sight of the fact that many of the comments are coming from non-parents. And most of our digital things that I'm hearing seems to be to address the parent community that we've got out there. I think we also need to look at how we're getting a message out to the non-parents, because that's where we're getting a lot of comments as well. So that was just an issue there. For My Family Room, do we have any schools not using My Family Room at this point?
Mr. Chair, no. It's actually, we collect statistics weekly by school on the number of parents that are signed up, and it varies a little bit, but it's actually evened out quite a bit across the board, especially because we're doing things like having all schools have access to receive attendance notes through the mobile app, and all schools have access to do the automated call-outs for kids that are supposed to be at school but haven't showed up. So we're seeing the uptake continue to move up, and as we roll out new bits of functionality, you inevitably see a good bump every time a new bit of functionality comes out.
Okay, thank you. And supplemental. Thanks for that, Mr. Hobbs, because if my memory serves me right, a year and a half ago, we still had schools putting out mass communications in other formats other than My Family Room. So it's nice to see that. Have we thought of having, not mandatory is not quite the word I want, but kindergarten registration, including access to My Family Room so that we can build up, it comes automatic?
Director.
Mr. Chair, through you, I just want to comment earlier. We are moving in that direction. We're trying to induct parents into the My Family Room experience at the front end. And then through the communications department, working with Superintendent Dawes, we have another transition period when students move from grade 6 to grade 7. And again, another opportunity to re-register and be connected with My Family Room where we can. We believe that by making an initial push last year in that regard, it helps to explain our 70% increase and more to come. We have to respect, of course, the fact that some families come to us in different ways and register their children, and paper still is important as part of a backup or as a contingency. Our goal is to whatever extent reasonable, to get families to be fully subscribing to the platform, because then what we have is then everybody is on outside and we can get our message out in a way that's comprehensive. We do recognize that sometimes our end users might need a little bit of help, and when we've had our kindergarten registration events, we've had people there to talk about how to register there on My Family Room and to walk people through that as well. So I think we have to be very flexible about how we're going to help a wide range of end users. People are very comfortable, ready to explore and give it a try. People who have heard of it and said they'll get to it, and other people who are unsure, and to continue to socialize, I think, our parent population about what we have out there that we think is very important.
Trustee Cartner, thank you.
Through you, Chair. Superintendent Hobbs, can you tell me, have any idea as to teachers and their use of Family Room to convey information to the families, like in timetables and test notifications and things like that? You keep that data?
Well,
collected?
Just through Mr. Chair, just a couple, just to maybe, if I can preface that with a little bit about how it works. So teachers really don't go into My Family Room. Essentially what we do is we take, when parents sign up, for example, and they put an email address in, we take the parent's email address, and for every teacher in our board, we create an email distribution list of all the parent email addresses that we have. So that's created sort of automatically and refreshed a couple times a day. So really what we want teachers to do is we're trying to minimize the number of new skill sets that employees in the board have to learn in order to do their job. So if you already know how to send an email to your colleague, then you know how to send an email to parents. You don't have to go out and collect email addresses. You don't have to learn how to build an email distribution list. You just have to email. If you know how to send a calendar invitation to your colleague, the exact same process is used to send one to your class. And when you send a calendar invitation to your class for a test on Friday, for example, it automatically appears in My Family Room, it automatically appears in the My Family Room mobile app, and it automatically appears on kids' phones who have registered their phones with on the Wi-Fi network. So we actually have in the IT department a teacher, Tanya Mason, who's been out doing a great job one-on-one with teachers, showing them how this all works. And you know, it's actually been surprising a little bit to a certain extent that, you know, teachers don't use calendar on a day-to-day basis because the bell rings and they know where to go. So, so we've been actually playing a little bit of catch up on some of those skills as well. We have definitely proxy data for the number of visits where she's been, and we have some sample data as to who's using it. I don't have it handy, but I could bring that back if that was something you're interested in.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments or questions? Well, Superintendent Hobbs, that was well worth the wait. Thank you for that report. Okay, moving on to the next item, which is the police/school board protocol. I'm going to turn this over to Superintendent David Coombs.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and good evening again, trustees. I'm pleased to return to the board table to talk again about the police school board protocol. It's 2016. Those of you that were at the table 5 years ago will remember me bringing the original police board protocol to your attention. This is a renewal, an update, and I'm going to highlight some of the new elements of our police and school board protocol. So again, you will may remember again the original document was produced in September of 2011. It was a provincial mandate and initiative, and it was initiated in our board by then Superintendent Ted Kennedy, and the policy was developed with a certain intent. It was mainly to help coordinate and make safe schools around the province. And what was noticed at that time was there were a lot of emergency procedures which were not consistent from board to board, region to region, and quite frankly, school to school within boards. So this was really to help develop a coordinated approach across the province and across school boards, so that if you were in one school, let's say you were either a student or an occasional teacher, and the next week you were in another school, that those emergency procedures and the way that we deal with police is consistent from school to school. It was really an opportunity to, that's okay, you can go to the, oh, thank you. It was really an opportunity to make staff aware, make sure that they have the knowledge, skills, and attitudes necessary to make our school environment as safe as possible. It was also an opportunity to really look and say, how do we handle conflict when we do have to involve the police, and how do we deal with everybody in a really respectful and civil manner? So in this document, there are several strategies, perhaps most importantly, the prevention of violent behavior. And a part of the board protocol is our VITRA, or Violent Threat Risk Assessment process. And that risk assessment process has really become ingrained in the culture of our board. And it's really reaching out before something bad happens, when there are worrisome signs and red flags. And it could be just a student who has been depressed and is quiet and is perhaps doodling something that is concerning. Or it could be another student or a teacher noticing that they're surfing the internet and looking at some violent websites. And so it's a way of intervening before something tragic happens. Either someone gets hurt, someone hurts either themselves or others. And it really has become an enculturated way of operating in Upper Canada. It's also this protocol also is a way of dealing with incidents when they do happen in an effective and timely manner. And I really want to highlight it does so in a way that respects the rights of both the victims and the witnesses, as well as the perpetrators. And I think the next slide really talks about a commitment to human rights principles. And just yesterday, I was at an LLMA, which is a training session for principals and vice principals. I was talking about the new police board protocol, and we were talking about the fact that before we had this really standardized approach, we didn't always, not that our police need policing, but I think we really had to come to the conclusion that we control our schools, and our students are our students. And that we're going to make sure that our students are always respected, that our students are treated civilly and according to and according to a set of protocols and procedures. And I think that's really one of the standard achievements of this protocol, that we have an agreement of how we're going to deal with situations with our police forces. So what's new? Well, amongst the mandatory notification of police, these are new elements. So when considering a VITRA, or Violent Threat Risk Assessment, police must be notified. I would say that we do that anyways. That's been codified in the new procedure in the update, but we've always done that. We don't conduct a violent threat risk assessment without our police partners at the table. Same with lockdown or an intruder within the school. Again, if we're calling a code lockdown, we're calling the police. What is new is number 4, non-consensual sharing of intimate images. You may know this as sexting. That also has been added, in that if this is brought to the attention of an administrator, they must mandatorily call the police. And also new bomb threats and suspicious packages. Again, that's been part of our emergency codes for a long time, but this has been added to the to our police protocol. I'm just going to talk a little bit about our bomb threat plan and procedures. Like I said, we've had these as part of our emergency procedures for a long time. But now all school boards in Ontario must have a bomb threat response policy, and each board must ensure that its staff, students, and other stakeholders are aware of their obligations, responsibilities. So while this is not new for our schools, this is a new opportunity for us to emphasize and to make aware the policies which we have had standing. So there have been a number of new documents which have been produced for our administrators, and again, we've been engaged in training starting in August. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. The document also has effective practices at the back of the document. So just a way of talking about here's a way of establishing really good procedures for your school sort, like a for instance. So this is a way of preparing and making sure that your staff and your students are aware and prepared for any eventuality. One of the things that's new is portables. And this has been added because portables generally have very thin wall construction. One of the recommendations is that in case of a lockdown procedure, that the students would gather in the middle of the portable, turn their desks facing out, and cover behind them. Again, that's something new which has been added to our documentation. So we're talking about this with our principals about how they might help their staff and their students prepare for something like this. Also, a new practice which has been added to this document is barricading. Barricading doors, and you may remember a couple of years ago when there was the shooting incident on Parliament Hill, the Tory caucus at the time barricaded the door, and that practice has been added to this documentation. So we're talking to our principals about how they might prepare staff in the very unlikely eventuality is that there's somebody in their school with this kind of intent, of how they can make their staff and their students as safe as possible. So that's basically the new components within the documentation. So there's the addition of the mandatory notification of police. There's the addition of the bomb threat policies and procedures. And again, we've had those. This is just an update of those. And also some of the new practices. So this obviously, when you roll out something new, you can't roll it out once and expect immediate compliance. So we first introduced this back at, we first introduced this back in the springtime, but we started rolling out training at our August Leadership Day. That was brought to staff meetings, staff meeting agendas throughout the fall. We've run a Safe Schools newsletter. It comes out monthly. It's called Safe Schools at a Glance. And the November one was all about the new police board protocol with links to the new documentation. We've done this at family of school meetings as superintendents, and again yesterday we had an LLMA presentation. We also update this on a regular basis through link calls, and that really enables us to do online training on an ongoing basis. And we are in development of video training. So like the concussion training that we did a couple of years ago, this is video training to, again, 4 or 5 minute videos which enable principals to show to staff. And it's a way of making sure that people are aware of the kind of safety procedures that need to be in place. They're also really handy for showing at parent or school council meetings to make sure that parents are also aware of what we do to make sure that their students are safe. I'll take any questions.
Thank you very much. We'll open it up to comments. Questions, Trustee McAllister.
Thank you, Superintendent Coons, for that very cheery presentation.
Merry Christmas to all. Good night.
You mentioned the Safe School newsletter as well as the video, the videos, etc. Would it be appropriate for trustees to be copied on that so that we could have a better understanding of what's going on?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Yes, absolutely. Be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Trustee Wendy McPherson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just slide 7, when it comes to what's new in mandatory notifications, when considering violent threat risk assessments, that's the document? Or when you're like teachers are, like when it, like I'm not sure like how this would be, like you're supposed to mandatory notification of police. You're talking like phoning them when considering a violent threat risk assessment? What is a violent threat risk assessment, I guess is what I'm asking. Like, how would that, like, actually go down?
Thank you. Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for that question. The violent threat risk assessment is a process which is encapsulated within the board protocol. And it's whenever we have a student who we believe is exhibiting warning signs. We call that worrisome kind of behavior. Especially whenever they're moving off baseline. So a student becomes really sullen, becomes really withdrawn, and like I said, perhaps is threatening either online or in the hallways. So a violent threat risk assessment is a process we engage in when we sit down with people from the community, different agencies, could be teachers, could be other staff from the board, could be children's mental health, could be CAS. And we're really trying to assess, is there a risk here that we need to be aware of? The whole concept of that is to be able to intervene early, before there's an issue. And we have the police at the table.
Right.
And there's a series of questions we ask, which is scripted and includes, are there firearms or weapons in the house? Is there a drug use? And it's a really probing process to make sure that if there is a child that's in need of help, that we do that sooner than later.
All right, so now the police are at the table.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so now the non-consensual sharing of intimate images, that is as if the principal learns of it, she is now a mandated reporter to police. Okay.
That's correct, yes.
All right, I wasn't aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Thank you very much, Superintendent Coombs. Okay, moving on to the first action item. This is a follow-up to an audit committee recommendation back in June, and I am accepting full responsibility for dropping the ball on this. It has to do with the whistleblower policy. I had agreed that at that board meeting at the end of June that I would establish a committee, and I did start in the process of creating the committee. I sat down with the director, and we have one staff member that's going to be on it. I spoke to a couple of trustees, and then I just basically dropped the ball and forgot about it. And the reason I'm bringing it forward tonight is the motion made it very clear that this would come to the board in December, and of course we have not met. And so what I'm asking for is a new motion that allows you to forgive me, allow me to do my job properly. I apologize for that. To bring the committee together in January with a report coming to board in February. So if you are okay with that, I'm going to have a motion that the Upper Canada District School Board amend the motion that was adopted at the board meeting of June the 1st, that the Upper Canada District School Board create a committee to review the key elements of the policy 1005 whistleblower, and to provide the board with any recommendations for revisions by no later than February 2017. Do I have Trustee McAllister, do I have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Thank you.
I just want to comment.
Yes.
I think you can do it for February, but our audit committee meeting is going to be February 7th, and the following meeting would be April 11th. So if we can get it by the end of February, that would be helpful. I don't think it'll get on the agenda for February 7th, but...
Okay. Well, I'm just going to leave it as February right now, and with that noted. Any other comments or questions? And again, I apologize for dropping the ball on that.
Through you, Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Trustee Swan.
I would just like to suggest that we make this date maybe April with all we're doing with Building for the Future, so these committees can meet on top of all the other meetings. I hope we all attend. And anyway, that's just my suggestion. Thank you.
Well, this committee would not be made up of, it's just a very small committee. It would be probably just one meeting to take a good look at the policy itself. So it's not overly intensive, but it's important work. But it's not going to be something that's going to be extremely tasking.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So I have a motion before me to do it, and we have a moved by. No, it was Trustee McAllister.
And second by Mr. McDonald.
And Trustee McDonald. And I'll ask you to cast your votes. And that carries. I thank you very much. And again, I apologize for that. Moving on to the next item is a standing report from SEAC, and I'm going to ask Trustee Susan Richards if she'll give us a report.
Thank you. The Special Education Advisory Committee met on Tuesday, December 6th here at the board office. It was a short meeting. We had a presentation from Superintendent Allen where she reviewed the training that was provided to teachers on the fall PA days and shared the PowerPoints that was used those days. Action items, Superintendent Allen and her team are still working on recruiting more SEAC members to our committee. And Superintendent Allen also gave the superintendent's report, and you can see there's quite a few things that she reported on in November. Hiring of some staff in the following roles: psych staff, itinerant student support worker, and autism therapist. So our next meeting is January 10th, and everyone's welcome to come and sit in on the meetings.
All right. Let's have a ton of questions now. Come on. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing there are none. Director, do you have any remarks? Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on. Oh, hang on. Trustee David McDonald, my apologies. How could I have forgotten about OPSCO?
I've been told I'm forgettable.
My apologies. Hold that thought.
Really quickly, Mr. Chair, I will go over the meeting and go into detail on a couple of points. We met about 2 weeks ago now and reviewed labor relations issues, how it's relating to the sector. Nothing is concrete at this point, but certainly if anything does come out, we'll share that with the trustees. Around communication and media relations, at the next meeting I will provide a link, and hopefully if we have some time, depending on the agenda, share a video that was created by the Ontario Student Trustees Association called By Any Measure, and certainly have student trustee Grace Marr hopefully help with that presentation. Also discussed finance issues. We received updates from the School Energy Coalition and student transportation around RFPs in the province. Part of the OPSPA review around finances, we always, we don't go into detail, but we get provided a copy of the B and SB memos that are released by the ministry. Those are released throughout the course of a calendar year, and some updates are always shared, mostly impact on how staff are conducting things and responding to initiatives by the ministry is really that the B and SB memos are. We also talked quickly about the consultation guide around the GSN consultation, and there was information that was shared, and I don't know if this impacts our board or not, quite honestly. There was information shared about the broadband modernization program, Wave 1. It's a pool of money that's being released to ensure that all areas of the province have access to broadband internet accessibility, high-speed accessibility. We talked about an early years update, and OPSPA provided a submission around the early years update, a document called Building a Better Future. The link has been provided to trustees through an OPSPA Connect release last week. If you need that again, we can certainly put it in the minutes so that you have access to that link that OPSPA shared. Talked about legislative update from the province.
Where is my email? So legislative updates. Still work. Previously, we talked about Bill 37, the Protecting Students Act. That received royal assent on December 5th. That is an act associated to recommendations out of the Ontario College of Teachers. 49 recommendations adopted by the College Council for Teachers. Bill 45 received royal assent on December 8th. It's a Election Statute Law Amendment Act. It deals with legislation allows the 2018 provincial elections to move from October to June. So provincial election would happen in June. We'd have municipal elections and school board elections in the fall, so they wouldn't overlap. Safer School Zones Act, Bill 65. Bill is only at first reading, but this is allowing for automated speed enforcement, so photo radar capabilities. Bill 68, only at second reading stage. This is the Modernizing Ontario's Municipal Legislation Act. It's to introduce two important pieces for school boards: changes to the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act and changes to the Municipal Elections Act that change the term start date for councillors and school board trustees from December 1st to November 15th. Bill 89, Supporting Children, Youth and Families Act. This was introduced only on December 8th, just before the House rose for Christmas break. The bill, if passed, would put children at the center of decision-making, support more accountability, and responsive and accessible child and youth services, and strengthen oversight for children's aid societies and licensed residential services. We also received an update around community hubs. There was an update on the Indigenous Trustees Council, which is formerly known as the First Nation Métis Inuit Trustee Council. They are continuing to work on the recommendations associated to the Truth and Reconciliation Committee, and there is a Truth and Reconciliation Committee Curriculum Steering Committee that has ongoing work. I think Trustee Karkner spoke to this previously, but around the Coalition of Child and Youth Mental Health, the Wellbeing Strategy Consultation has been extended to March 2017. Received an update on French as a Second Language progress and achievement, so it's work associated to the Canadian-Ontario Government Agreement on Minority Language Education and Second Official Language Instruction Groups. The report was provided, but certainly one of the things that was useful was some of the links that teachers can use around resources. One is IDELO and TFO, and certainly those are resources that teachers can access across the province. We also talked about the Public Education Symposium coming up in January. But one of the things I did want to mention is the release of OPSPA's, I think it was 3 years in the making, discussion paper on EQAO and large-scale testing in Ontario. So the paper was released early in December. It's not a paper, it's actually a booklet. In any case, it resulted in information being provided after a survey and a lot of consultation with many stakeholders in the Ontario education system. The survey that was released came back, and the results have 12% of those people surveyed wanting to eliminate EQAO testing. 23% feel that EQAO testing is highly effective, and then 64.5% feel that changes are required. So I think it's overwhelming that many want to see EQAO testing remain, but certainly have an opportunity to make some changes associated to it. OPSPA's recommendations, there were 7, center around many facets. One, equity and accessibility, the integration of technology and emphasis on higher order skills, Grade 10 Ontario Secondary School Literacy Test, diagnostic assessment, student well-being, the public positioning of EQAO results, and the use of randomized testing. Certainly, the link I can share with you. I had was able to scrounge a hard copy, but I'll share the link with trustees. It was released to all trustees earlier this month. Two things in particular: the public position of EQAO results. It's recommended that the ministry, this is from OPSPA of Education and Education Quality Accountability Office, overhaul how student achievement is communicated to parents, guardians, and the public. Specifically, provide an overall context for assessment of student achievement, provide clarity of the role of EQAO, clarify that ongoing in-school assessment of students leads to timely feedback to benefit the students, clarify that a key purpose of EQAO and the board-by-board data generated by EQAO assessments is to provide boards in schools with information that helps them identify strengths and gaps in curriculum implementation and allows the school board to incorporate strategies for improvement and allocate relevant resources. Emphasize the value of the progress made on all students who participate in EQAO test results. Develop a method of publishing student achievement data that precludes the ability to rank schools. Provide information through the ministry's Leadership and Learning Environment Division that clarifies the range of factors that contribute to an effective school and the value that every school has to the community which it is situated. The use of randomized testing. We've said it many times here. There is support for the current system of EQAO testing. There is also a significant body of opinion calling for the examination of other effective methods of large-scale assessment of student achievement. OPSPA member boards want to ensure that quality data and cohort sets are available to inform decision-making and strategic planning efforts to maximize student outcomes. Recommended that given the reliable, objective reporting on student achievement in reading, writing, and math is currently successfully measured internationally in other Canadian jurisdictions using randomized tests, that the Ministry of Education consider a process in collaborating with all education partners to examine the feasibility of randomized testing that would satisfy the requirement of accountability in the Ontario education system. It's a great document. It really talks to the need to go in and look at what's being done. It's not throwing it out completely, but it's certainly suggesting that significant changes have to occur to allow for some greater legitimacy to what EQAO was set out to do, and allow for boards to use the information to really truly help students, as opposed to being a measuring stick in communities for one school over the other school. Mr. Chair, as I said earlier, we'll have a PES meeting in January. We'll also have a regional meeting as a component of that on a Saturday morning. I think it's the 27th of January. No, 19th and 20th. Our next board of directors meeting will not be until March 3rd and 4th, I think it is. That's it.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions? Sorry, I almost forgot that.
That's okay.
Jeez.
Through you, Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Trustee Swan, and then Trustee Krim. Go ahead.
I have a question. Is there anything OPSPA's doing, or have they been lobbied in regards to the province looking at the funding formula for rural schools?
On an annual basis, the OPSPA, so through the GSN consultations, we respond, but we also have a working document around funding that calls for a complete review of the funding formula. Not specifically to rural schools, but around the complete review.
Okay. Trustee Cran.
Thank you, Chair. In the report, Dave, you were talking a little bit about access funding for the broadband area. Can you give any light on that, or maybe the director might be able to help? I don't know if you know anything about that.
Director?
Mr. Chair, through you, the ministry has reached out to all district school boards to advise that the ministry is prepared to provide support for almost like a baseline for school districts to have access to broadband. As you know, that's a matter of some interest to not only school boards, municipalities who are trying to provide that kind of service, for instance, through public libraries. So the minister hopes, or the province hopes, I guess, to actually have this baseline of service available that would help to enable a variety of functions for school boards, but most importantly around e-learning and student learning. There was a preliminary memo that went out within the last month, and commitment to work with school boards to try to establish that baseline.
Supplemental.
Go ahead.
Would that then include being able to communicate with some parents in the rural communities?
Mr. Chair, through you, and maybe perhaps the Vice Chair has a comment on that. I didn't understand it to be specific about what was the intentionality behind that, except as to try to close gaps what they believe exists in terms of how school boards are able to provide services to students.
If I may, thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with the Director. However, a side effect could be that, so if you are providing fiber cable into a community, then the community as a whole benefits from it. So you have that spin-off effect typically. I think, you know, as the Director said, the memo's gone out. It's to determine what that requirement is in boards. I think we're going to see that the northern boards potentially have the biggest gap. Not to say that we don't have a gap, but that's probably where the biggest gap is. And there's a certain pool of funding that's going to be associated to helping that. So if it's a satellite wireless type piece, then that helps the schools and helps the students to be able to communicate. But if it's a hardwired fiber, dark fiber that's going in that helps schools, then again, municipalities and the greater communities have a side benefit from that.
I'm just looking at areas like Levant and Poland, up in the French settlement area, up in Lanark Highlands, where they don't have access to the internet at all. So,
Thank you.
We'll keep an eye on it.
Trustee McAllister?
I have two comments with regard to two items that Trustee McDonald referred to. One was the early years update. As a result of this update, beginning in 2017, for the next 5 years, over 100,000 childcare spaces are going to be created. And I think this is a significant news for this board in particular, because this strategy could assist small schools, especially rural schools, with before and after daycare services, which are or may be on the cusp of feasibility. Mm-hmm. And as a result of that, there are consultation sessions to which we could go. One is in Ottawa on January the 16th, and the other is in Kingston on January the 17th and 18th. I strongly suggest that we do make a presentation focusing on the problems of small rural schools and how we can benefit from the before and after daycare services, especially in areas, as I said earlier, where we might be on the cusp of feasibility. We have 6 students, 7 students, when we actually need 8 or whatever it is to offer the service. So that's one recommendation that I would make with regard to those sessions. And the second one is with regard to the Ontario Coalition for Children and Youth Mental Health. Trustee Carter this afternoon convened a meeting as a result of her involvement with the program committee. And there is a survey that OPSPA is conducting with regard to well-being in boards. And when I say we, Trustee Carter, the director, Student Trustee Marr, myself, and Dr. Inglis, and Superintendent Edwards. We completed that survey this afternoon, and I think we did a very good job of it. So, 2 comments, and I'm wondering if we can get any action on the first one.
Okay.
I'm just wondering what people think about it.
I'll open that up. That was a recommendation of attending or making a presentation, I believe, on the 16th or 17th. Any comments?
Through you, Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Trustee Swan.
I mean, I think it's a very valid point that Trustee McMillan brought up. McMillan, giving him a promotion now, McAllister. And I'd very much like to go to one of those sessions. I'd like some more information on the dates and the times if I could get them, because I know in the Building for the Future document, it doesn't say it, but in one of my schools, it would take removing a two-room daycare out of the school that's counting as pupil places and putting the kids in classrooms, but it doesn't say that. So I think to preserve this, preserve the communities, I think we do need a presentation. I think we have to move fast. Obviously, we only have 6 weeks and over Christmas break as well, but I'd put my name forward to be on this committee to put forward the presentation and to go to the meeting.
Thank you. Trustee McDonald?
Thank you. So just want to clarify that there is funding that's going to be associated for new childcare spaces. There is also currently in place the requirement for before and after school programming within our schools. So that already exists. The 100 new childcare spaces has nothing to do with the before and after school. This is full-time daycare spaces, the 100,000. So it's not before and after school, which exists today. You have a choice to either offer it in-house or to offer it as a third party, and your cost associated to the before and after school programming has to be, I don't know the word, but it cannot be for profit. Essentially, it's a revenue neutral situation. The child care spaces that they're talking about is certainly that. It's daycare spaces for children who are not in school. That's what the 100,000 spaces is for.
Well, I'm just wondering if instead of moving on it right now, we dig deeper to find out a lot more prior to committing ourselves to something right now. You all right with that, Trustee McAllister?
Sure.
I think it's just a matter of digging deeper and finding out exactly what we're playing with here. Okay, any other comments or questions?
I have just a quick, what would the presentation be on?
Yeah. Well, I think that what I'm saying is I'm not sure. Okay. So I think we need to dig deeper to find out what it is before we could even come close to identifying what the presentation would be. Okay? I mean, the presentation, if there is one made, would have to tailor itself to being able to get the attention that it needs to be. And if we don't know what kind of attention we're trying to get right now, it's difficult. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Thank you. Director, comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, all trustees know that one of our 4 strategic priorities is public confidence, and through my visits at schools with area superintendents, I get a chance to confirm different ways that our public and our community should have confidence in our schools. This past month, I've been in 3 elementary schools, and I just wanted to draw to your attention examples of where we should feel a great deal of confidence that students are being served very well, aligned with ministry practice that is expected as part of our program delivery, and most importantly, that there's a diligence that really speaks to why we should feel both confident and proud of what we're doing in our schools. Earlier in the month, I was with Superintendent Allen at Russell Public School, and one of the stopovers in the school was in the JKSK classroom. It was really a hub of activity, but the most important thing that you need to know as trustees is that with the advent of a new kindergarten program model that had 4 frames to it around belonging, engagement, expression, and well-being, it was so clear that that was part of what that environment was all about. And the amount of confidence and independence that these young learners had in the classroom was so impressive. And we could see how there was also seamlessness between the teacher, the ECE, and another staff member who was supporting some children with some particular needs, that they all owned responsibility for those children's success. And nobody was sort of saying, well, this is who I work with and this is who I work with. It was very interchangeable. So I'm sure that the parents at that school know that children in our kindergarten program are being served very, very well. But it's important to indicate that one of the reasons why people are doing that is their deep commitment to students and also a strong alignment to the provincial direction about these 4 pillars. That when you really think about it, those 4 pillars would serve K to 12, not just kindergarten to 12. We talk about belonging. Which student in our system doesn't have a desire to belong, and engagement, and around the focus of expression and well-being. So it really says that we're front-end loading our kids' success by what we're doing in kindergarten. And it is a strong, I think, message to our communities that we really are trying to make sure that our children have the best possible start as learners. Then later, just this past week, with Superintendent Edwards, I was in Duncan J. Scholler School in Smiths Falls, and the principal was unpacking for Superintendent Edwards and I how they're tracking student achievement in that school, and looking at how they're using assessments and determining whether or not there is growth among students. And at first blush, they had a group of students that they were tracking very closely that was, they call marker students, or students that were looking at as indicators about whether our efforts are moving full groups of students forward. And 2 out of 12 had shown immediate movement to a higher level of achievement. And I thought, well, you know, that's a metric that we should be looking at in some ways, but it doesn't necessarily convince me that we're on the right path. Then the principal showed me the next group of students who were moving. That was students who are almost at a level 3 or level 4 level of success. And that was 9 out of the 12 students. So what I saw there was really a compelling example of how, like our presentations that we heard this evening from Athens and BCI, that people are working with data not for the sake of collecting data, but for the purposes of saying, are we really making a difference in terms of how we're teaching and how students are learning? And it was very compelling, and it really caused me to feel a great deal of confidence about how the principal and her staff were actively engaging where students were at, and then asking questions about what does it take to move them forward beyond where they're currently at. And then lastly, Superintendent Edwards and I were up in Elmont at our Tate McKenzie School, and it was a snow day. And you know, sometimes we wonder about whether or not the public is still committed to sending children to school when the buses aren't running, but you know the schools are open. So on that day, we had a third of the students at the school, not just walkers, but people who would have to have transportation, that their parents found a way to get the children to school. And what I saw there was 2 things. I saw such a strong sense of community about how you know, students were working with a variety of other students that weren't part of their class, but the school had a very effective model of combining students by grades, and then offering them something very meaningful to do as part of their learning for that day that included physical education, literacy, the arts. Like it was very purposeful, and I want to assure the members of the board and the public who are listening that you know, there may be some doubts about whether or not we are still making a meaningful school experience when the weather gets in the way. And what I saw there with Superintendent Edwards was just so purposeful and meaningful for kids. And most of all, the students themselves were highly engaged. There was a high level of on-task behavior. And we were in one classroom for at least 20 minutes. So if the wheels are going to fall off the cart, you know, you can't make it nice for company for 20 minutes. It would dissipate at some point. So it was really, really exciting. And also worth noting, Superintendent Edwards and some of her colleagues made a presentation 2 board meetings ago about the health and physical education curriculum as part of well-being. So our Tate McKenzie School and a few other schools up in that part of Lanark have a commitment to a program called the Bach program. And what that is, it's about physical activity that's non-competitive but highly engaging. And what I saw there again was a wide group of students using half the gym who were being supervised and given support and given feedback about what they were doing, that they found totally engaging. And we talked about DPA, a daily physical activity, as part of what the board does and has been doing for many years. But what was happening there was that the students were self-directing them, other groups of students, in that kind of learning experience. And on the other half of the gym was what you would see through, probably a more conventional type of physical education experience where students were playing volleyball. But what was happening there was that students had choice, and they also were involved in activity that was vigorous, that they were enjoying, and that they felt that they could collaborate with their peers. So these are all things that I think that matters to our Board of Trustees, and I think it matters to our parent community. And it's showing that on days that are both planned and when we have to modify our plans due to the weather, that we're still offering students things that are very valuable to them and I think to their families. So I'm glad I can share that to you, Mr. Chair, and to the trustees tonight as part of how, when we're going at school visits, we're trying to look for all those pillars being in play, including how would the public have confidence in how we're working with children on that particular day. So I appreciate I could bring that to you tonight.
Thank you, Director. In just my closing comments, first I want to start out by thanking Student Trustee Marr for another successful Student Senate. I unfortunately wasn't there for the entire thing, but my trustees were, and thank John and Carol for being there. And I know, Don, you would have been there, but you were ill. It means a lot, I know, for me to walk through the door and see you there, but I know it means... Oh, and Wendy, you must have left before I got there. My apologies, but it's so important, I think, for me to walk in and see the students and see you there. I think it just shows the support that we have. So again, thank you very much for the leadership that you're showing there. I think I'd mentioned to you somewhere along the line that every Student Senate didn't have to look the same from year to year, and they're not looking. They now have your touch to it, and I think you're getting a lot of information from the student senators. So thank you for that. The other comment that I want to make, and I've probably made this before, but I think it really bears repeating. We open our doors to every child, and when those young people come through our doors, we do everything we can to help them academically, but we're also there for their mental health and their well-being. And, it's 11 days to Christmas. I say there's still 11 days to Christmas, but there are other people that say there's only 11 days to Christmas. But it takes me back and reminds me of being a teacher. In my very early years, I learned something very, very profound about this time of the year. Because for many of our students and their families, it's a time where they get together. It's a family time, it's food, it's gifts. It's 2 weeks of just being together and having fun. And for some of our young people, these are incredibly difficult 2 weeks. Because it's a reminder to them of what they don't have. It's a reminder to them the fact that life is tough. And it's a very deep challenge for some of our kids. And I saw that firsthand as a teacher. You'd see some kids going out that door with a huge smile on their face, and you could see other students incredibly apprehensive about the next 2 weeks they were going to face. And everyone's talking about their gifts and all the things they're going to do, and these young people knew that wasn't going to come their way. But equally as troubling were the parents, who knew that their child was coming home and that they couldn't give what other parents could give. And they love their child as much as any other parent. And it's a very difficult time. And when I think about our staffs right now, I know a lot of our teaching staff, a lot of our administrators recognize that. This is not an easy time for all of our young people. And I thank our staff and the senior team and everyone that recognizes this, that it's a wonderful time of the year for some, but not for all. So the last thing I want to say is we don't come together again until January. We spend a lot of time together when you think about it. Some of us have been together for 6 years. Some of you have been together longer than that. The new board for 2 years. We'll be together for another 2. It's a long time. And no matter how you want to say it and how much we want to agree and disagree with things, we are a family. We're a team. We care about each other, and I care deeply for every one of you, and I want you to have a safe holiday. I want you to find some time to balance and turn off your phones and escape some of the things that are happening around us, because I think we all need that. And we need to come back in January in the new year ready. A lot of work, There's a lot of discussions that we have to have as a team. There's going to be a lot of things we're not going to agree on, but at the end of the day, we have to recognize we care for each other and we're a team. So I want you to have a safe holiday, and thank you for those people, that Carol and Susan, for putting things here, and I really appreciate that. So I need a motion that the Upper Canada District School Board move into Committee of the Whole, moved by Trustee Susan Richards, seconded by Trustee Armour. He put his hand up, I saw that. And just a show of hands. So, thank you very much. And now I need a motion that the Committee of the Whole move into private session, December 14th, 2016, moved by, don't anybody even so much as move, Trustee McAllister moved, seconded by Trustee Wendy McPherson. A show of hands. Thank you very much for going into private session.
And before we do that,